I have to say the first miracle of the day is the fact that I'm standing here this early, and I hope to speak some sense. I'm actually not a morning person. I think everybody thinks of athletes as these people that get up at 6 a.m. and just run. And I'm actually not one of those. But anyway, let's get started. So what am I going to share today? So let's start. My story as an athlete, I'm going to start there. I'm gonna share my testimony and how it was, where everything started for me, how did I become a professional athlete, and just how my story unfolded. I'm gonna focus on a few highs and the lows of my career. I think for me it's important to share both parts of the coin. And then after that I'm gonna give some insights into the challenges of the professional sport environment. I would like to give you like a sneak peek into my world of the sport environment and just the aspects and the atmosphere that is quite unique to sport, maybe not so unique, and I hope some of you can still relate in whichever environment you find yourself every day. But I want to give you some insights into the sport world. And then I'm going to go a bit deeper and share my faith journey. Very important, I think, also the questions that I had with my faith and with God. And then last but definitely not the least, what I've learned about God. I'm not a theologian. I'm not, so everything that I say, please take it, go test it. And it's just my story. And I really hope that it will encourage you today. So let's start. Who am I? Okay, who's this person standing here sharing her story? She says she's an athlete. I'm Rikenette Avenant. As Guillaume mentioned, quite recently I got married. And in the sport and athletics environment, I was better known as Rikenette Steenkamp. I come from Pretoria. I was in primary school Miller Park, as you can see there in the picture, and high school Miller Park as well. And I started running when I was 6 years old. I started with athletics, but I did all kinds of sports. So it wasn't just running for me. And to be honest, I was a bit of a late bloomer. So I wasn't this little star athlete from a young age. I didn't win nationals or anything like that when I was in primary school. I didn't even come close to that. I only won my first race in my life when I was 16 years old. And I also only started with hurdles when I was 16. So I wouldn't really that for other athletes, to be honest. I don't think that's the best idea or the best for hurdles especially. But that's that's part of my story. And I think if I look back, the fact that I started later helped me so that I can have a lengthy career, because I wasn't tired in a way quite early in my life. So for me, I only started also growing. That picture was taken when I was 13 years old. So I was physically tiny and behind my peers. But as I said, in grade 10 or high school, I only started running well. So when and how did I become a professional athlete? Good question. Grade 10, I started running better. In grade 11, I won my first nationals. And then in matric, I won my first senior title in the 100-meter hurdles. And I think that was a turning point for me, because in that time, it's quite a big achievement, but this life after school is waiting for you. So you have to make big decisions of what are you going to study and all of that. And I think, I just had this dream and I made this decision to, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to give everything for the sport. And yeah, it's not so easy in athletics to define what it means to be a professional sport athlete. I think in sport like golf or so, you turn pro at a specific moment, or when you achieve something specific. I think for me, it's just I've been running on an international level after school, and also doing it as a profession, as a career. Earning money, not much, but earning some. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing the past 13 years. I did not only run. Okay, so what else did I do besides running? I also studied a bit. Even though it wasn't my priority and I took some time finishing it, I studied sports science.
Thank you.
And then also I did my honors in sport and recreation management, and I finished my master's degree in women's sport leadership in athletics in South Africa. So yeah, athletics and sport is very close to my heart as well. And then I am a recently retired athlete, and it's still difficult for me to say, but that is where I'm at this point. So yeah, this is in a nutshell who I am and what I've been up to. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a bit more details. I'm going to, as I mentioned earlier, share a few highlights and a few, I don't want to say lowlights, but lowlights of my career, and give you both sides of the coin. Okay, so let's start with a few highlights of my career. Yeah, that's a few there. I'm not going to go into detail about all of them, but I want to single out a few. And if I think back, after school, this happened in a span of 13 years. This is not in a chronological order or anything. It's just, there's been a few highs and lows, and it's really been up and down. But yeah, I think I really want to single out the 100-meter hurdles national record. I think in hurdles, it was a long time. There was like a drought, I want to say, where athletes didn't run on international level really. And I really wanted to just break through some barriers again. And yeah, I broke a 21-year-old national record. It took me 7 years to achieve that. So it took some hard work. Yeah, so that's just something that's really special to me, and a race and an achievement that I will really remember. Then also something that's special to me is that I achieved or received a ministerial award of excellence from the Minister of Sport in 2018 for, I think, just maybe the barriers that I've broken in my event, but also for my studies, that I did a master's degree in women's sport leadership, and yeah, just doing some research on how we can improve women athletics in South Africa. And then just, in my opinion, the most fun and most amazing race in my life is the World Cup race, where I won. And I would like to share this race with you, just to give you some, yeah, just to give you like a peek of my world. And this is a race I will never forget. And the reason is, I think it was on an international stage. I wasn't ranked number one. I think you'll hear that in the commentating when I share it with you. And where it's just the life of sport, where something happens and you're given this opportunity. And yeah, hurdles, it's unpredictable. Sometimes things can just come together and you can win a race. But on the other side, I know the other side as well, where you can just clip a hurdle and fall on your face. Promise you that I've also experienced that side. Okay, so let's see the race.
The women's 100-meter hurdles, lanes 1 to 8. Good representation in terms of speed for Jamaica in lane number 1, and in lane number 6 for the USA, Queen Harrison. So 10.2'9" barriers. Janine Williams of Jamaica, 12.79 seconds, a lifetime best. She is age 21. So a withdrawal from China in lane number 2. Celine Ndama of France in 3. The heptathlete, just 19 years old, 13.06 though this season, a lifetime best for the teenager. In lane number 4, Rikenette Steenkamp of South Africa, the new South African record holder, 12.81 seconds. And outside of Steenkamp in 5, Nadine Hildebrand of Germany, a World Indoor finalist 4 years ago, 12.98 seconds this season. Another athlete under the 13-second barrier in this field. A nice wave from Queen Harrison in lane 6 from the USA. The United States team captain, 4th at the US Championships, the fastest on the field this year and ever. Karolina Kolezek of Poland, she'll start in lane number 7. Based in the UK, 12.97 seconds this season. And completing the lineup for Great Britain, Northern Ireland, Megan Mars, 2nd at the UK Championships, the 20-year-old, 13.32 seconds, chasing the Northern Irish record of 13.29, held by Mary Peters back from 1972. The women's 100-metre hurdles, Williams, Wu, Ndama, Steenkamp, Hildebrand, Harrison, Kolezek and Mars. Keep your eyes on Williams in 1 and Harrison in 6. So it's a clean start and a good start by Williams on the inside lane as expected. Harrison's got a little bit of work to do here. The South African Steenkamp going well in lane number 4. It's a battle between Jamaica and South Africa. And with a dip finish, well, 12.87 seconds. High fives all around, but she's looking back with her head in her hands. In lane number 4, Rikenette Steenkamp, she arrived here with a best, a lifetime best this season of 12.81 seconds. She's just outside of that, but that is a huge win for the 25-year-old. A big field that, Tim, a good win and good points.
Well, pretty unexpected, yes. Queen Harrison, 2 meters, maybe more, faster on paper this year than Steenkamp, but the South African 3rd from right. You see Queen Harrison 3rd from left, hit the first barrier really hard, and that was it. She was gone. She did well to come back into the race and get any points at all, but Steenkamp was not going to be caught. She had a real battle there. In fact, Harrison, such is her quality, she got through to 3rd place with Janine Williams of Jamaica in 2nd, but that is a shock. And Tony, if you hit a barrier, particularly the first barrier like that, when you're still building momentum,
yeah, it decelerates you massively. From that point of view, if you hook it up with your trail, if you hit it with the lead leg, as we saw the Jamaican in the 400 hurdles, it will decelerate and it will stop you, and it will knock you off balance, and that makes it very difficult for you to get to the next hurdle.
Well, points for South Africa with Rikenette Steenkamp, 12.88 seconds, beating the favoured Williams. Queen Harrison, well, technical problems mean she came down in 3rd. 6 points for the USA, but 8 valuable points for South Africa.
That's a great feeling, looking back on that race. But just to give you, like how an insight into my world and how the great races was. But as I mentioned, how did the other side of the coin look like? Okay, so I would like to share a few lows of my career as well. And I would like to single out a few specific lows. And I'm going to single out 3, and I'm going to go into a bit more depth into these stories. So as you can see there, I said injuries, ankle operation, not being selected for teams, not being able to call myself an Olympian after my career, and then COVID-19 and my retirement, I think, yeah. But let me give you some context. So the first low that I would single out is basically it was a few years after school. I was building momentum slowly but surely. the transition between a junior athlete and a senior athlete takes time, because you can be the number one as a junior, but now all of a sudden you're competing against senior athletes and all around the world. So it takes some time sometimes to make your mark there. And I was building momentum. In 2014, I won the African Championships, and I think, things are looking good for me. And then in 2015, I started struggling with my ankle. Nothing specifically happened. I didn't fall over a hurdle or, something like that, like a specific moment in training. It was just a gradual increase of discomfort and pain, to such a point that later, after a year, I couldn't really train anymore. So it's a long story, but then after a while, I went to a foot specialist, and we did a simple x-ray, and we found that I was born with an extra bone in my ankle. So that is unfortunately something that you cannot rehab out of your foot. So I had to undergo surgery. So we made the decision to get an ankle operation to get the bone removed. And ultimately, that led for me to be out of competition for 2 years, which isn't ideal for any athlete. And I had to start from the bottom again. So I had to start learning how to walk in the right way again, how to use my ankle. And in that time, there was a lot of doubt, a lot of questions about, should I still run? Maybe, I'm like 23 years old, just finalized my honors degree. Maybe I should start, giving up this dream world that I'm in and maybe, grow up. And, but I didn't. I really, there was just something in me that said, there's more in me. I cannot stop now. Let's go through the process of, facing it to try and run again. It was a long process, as I said, 2 years, learning how to walk again. I had to start really slowly, and it worked out for me. It was a beautiful, great, heroic story where this ankle operation actually improved me. Okay, so it improved the mobility and the movement in my ankle, and I ran better than ever after that. Also, I think what helped me was in a way, I was forced to train a bit less in quantity because of the injury I came from. So I had to, start slowly. And we realized, me and my coach, that this is helping me in a way. Like, my body is reacting to a bit less. I think as an athlete, we always think more is better. We need to almost lay there, not being able to walk after a training session. Well, I've learned that, I'm doing 100-meter hurdles, and the only thing that's my job is to be the fastest person from point A to point B. And my body reacted on a lot of speed training, but a lot of rest after that. And I think through this process, we realized that. And this helped me in 2017, when I call it my comeback year. I had a great season. I was running the best times I've ever ran in my life up to that point. And I think it was just, it felt like I had this heroic story, this comeback story. But just to give you the full picture, I was the first woman to run sub 13 in, I think, 20 years in that time. So I was knocking on the door of the national record. I wasn't there yet, but I was running good. And then at the end of that year, I was not selected for the World Championships, which was, hard for me, because I felt that I'm not a medal contender. I know that, but it felt like Athletics South Africa focused more on only the medal contenders. And I was feeling like, please just give me a chance. I'm really running better and better, and I can compete on the national stage, even though I'm not ranked in the top 3 or so. But I was not selected. I was still training for another big competition. I was training for the World Student Games, which I was ranked in the top at that point. And it was just a few weeks after the World Championships. So I was pushing myself and training really hard. And then I remember it was a Monday morning. I was doing a hard session. Usually Mondays are like that. And I strained my hamstring quite badly. So it felt like I was shot from behind. I fell on the track face first. It was really painful and not a good injury. And I couldn't walk, but they took me home. And then when I got home, I received a phone call from my agent, and he told me, he was very excited. He said, "Guess what? You're selected to go to the World Championships." And I was like, "Guess what? I'm not going to the World Championships because I cannot walk." And that type of emotion that you have to deal with, I was totally devastated. Having this heroic story, making this comeback from this ankle operation, but it's just up and down. And it was really tough for me dealing with that. And then 2018 came. I rehabbed my hamstring, again, made a comeback. And 2018 was the best year of my career. That race that I've just shown you was in 2018. So even though I missed out on a lot of the South African season that year, I waited until I was ready and I competed in Europe. And I had the privilege of breaking the national record that year twice. And just running some of the best races of my life. 2019 was also a great year. I went to the World Championships that year, so it was a great achievement for me, especially after the disappointment that I had. And everything looked good for me for the Olympics. So I want to mention that the year that I had the ankle operation was the Olympic year. So I missed out on the Olympics in 2016. So for me, this is my time. I've been working for this my whole life. I think as an athlete, we all can, agree that Olympics is the pinnacle of the sport. Yes, you can go to the World Champs, you can run at World Cup and everything, but to be an Olympian is everything. It's the ultimate. And you want to achieve that. So as you see there, I wasn't an Olympian. So what happened? So 2019, I was ready. I ran at the World Champs. I was a semi-finalist, showed quite good form. And then 2020, in the beginning of the year, I also ran quite well for so early in the season. And then we all know what happened. It was lockdown. And I started training in my home and I tried to stay fit. And then I think later in the year, I was one of the athletes that was given access to the track, which was quite nice. And I felt like I was in the shape of my life, to be honest. I felt great. Then in that December, I picked up a little niggle, as we call it, as athletes. So it wasn't a serious injury, but I picked up something and I was managing it. And then 2021 came and I was ready to start competing. And in the time I was ready to start, just in that moment, in that week, I got COVID myself. Okay, so in my head, it's just 10 days, just like get it over with and then you can run. Well, that wasn't the case. I was in lockdown for 10 days or in isolation. I wasn't that sick in the moment, but I felt like I had to play catch up the whole time. Everybody's training, everybody's ready. And not only should I be ready when I start again, I should be on top form. In my opinion, I have to qualify for Olympics. And after the isolation, I started training. I struggled, to be honest. I didn't train well, but I also think that I maybe pushed myself too soon, too much. And then it was only at nationals that was my first race of the season. To give you context, it's a lot of pressure to run at nationals your first race because you are the favorite. You have in an athlete's head, you have to win. You have to perform, and not only perform and win, maybe just expect of yourself to be on the top form of your life. And I think that was a bit unfair on myself, but that's how we are taught to think in this world, because that's what it takes to be number one. And yeah, I ran nationals. I won my heat, but literally it felt like I just ran a marathon after the race. I was so tired. And so after the race, I went to my dad, and he just looked at me like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine," because that's what we athletes do. We're always fine, and I've got this and everything. So we went to my physio, and then she saw like I'm not actually okay. And then she phoned my dad and said, "I don't think she should run the final. She should rather go to the hospital." So that's what we did. We went to the hospital. Long story. After that, to the cardiologist and everything. And basically they said to me, like, "You're literally still sick. You cannot run. And you're very lucky that you didn't damage your heart permanently." And they told me to take another 6 weeks off of doing nothing. And I'm like, the time is ticking, man. I need to go to the Olympics in 3 months or so. 6 weeks, this is not part of the plan. I did that. I waited 6 weeks. I just want to mention that in that 6 weeks, I didn't really rest mentally. You can rest physically, but I didn't rest mentally, because I was like, I have to do this almost impossible thing that I expect of myself. I tried to come back. After that period, I raced 3 races. With that said, with almost no training, expecting of myself to do the impossible. And I didn't run great. I think I ran the worst times that I ran in my, since I was matric, basically. So that was also very hard for me to swallow. And also, I didn't win that races. There's a few new kids on the block that beat me, and I didn't know how to deal with all of this. And little did I know that the 3rd race was my last race of my life. And it was a race where it was in the winter, where they gave last opportunity for people to qualify for the Olympics. And it was only me that decided, no, I want to push it to the last moment. It was in Potchefstroom. There were still restrictions. It was me and not only 10 hurdles, but all of the lanes was full, but it was only me running. It was so cold. It was a windy day. I ran into a headwind of -3, and I gave it my all, but I didn't come close to qualifying. If I think back, one thing that is special, it was the only race that my husband saw me live, and I'm really thankful for that, because that was special for me. After that, I'm going to summarize because I don't want to waste too much time, but I went to Europe even, and I just got injured again after, like, I would train 3 weeks, then I would get injured. 3 weeks, and I could then injured again. So for a whole year, I just couldn't come close to training at the intensity that is expected of a professional athlete. I can't run 100-meter hurdles 70%. It doesn't work that way. You're going to come last, and it's just a sport that requires 100 and more percent. So mentally, I was struggling with this up and down journey the whole time. And last year, when in the middle of the year, when I put everything in, we did hyperbaric chambers, we went to physios, we did just everything, PRP injections and everything, and I got injured again. I just said to myself, like, I need to take a break. And after the break, I made the decision to stop running. So to be honest, this wasn't my picture of how it all would stop, you know. And yeah, to think of, you know, I have these heroic stories of not giving up, times where I was down and out, but I could always come back and you know, write a beautiful story almost. And this is still a bit like open-ended for me. But and I think I'm still figuring it out. But I think I found peace with my decision, because I know that I gave it my all. And at the end of the day, there's a season for everything. But this is still difficult for me. Yeah. So this is some highs and lows of my story. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share some insights into the challenges of the professional sport environment and just a few struggles that I had in the sport world. And yeah, I think I just want to give you like a sneak peek into this environment that athletes have to deal with. I think many people have an idea of athletes, like we always get up at 6 a.m. and, you know, we're always fit and strong and all of that, but maybe this is not the case. So yeah, let's start with, it's an extremely competitive environment. So that might seem obvious to you, because that's what athletes do. We run to win, and winning is important, and we need to be competitive. And that's great. I think, for example, that race that I've just shown you, I needed to have this mindset of whatever it takes. I believe in myself, and I give myself a chance to be able to be number one. That's what we need. But also on the other side, whatever it takes mindset can be taken too far. Like, for example, the last year of my life, of my career, I also had that mindset, whatever it takes. You know, I'll run in pain. It's fine. You know, my leg, you know, is actually not in working condition, but, you know, I'll just push through that. And sometimes we can take it too far. And where is that line where it can become unhealthy? And this is, yeah, we're very confronted with this type of thinking as an athlete. Then, as I've shared my story, life is very up and down. And I think we need support as athletes, how to deal with the ups and the downs, because the highs are very high and very out there in the public, and the lows are very low. And we need the emotional support in those times. It's never enough. I will never forget the day when I broke the national record. I was working for this for such a long time. And the next morning I received a phone call from a journalist, and they said, "When are you running again? When are you going to do it again?" You know, I'm just like, can I just have a moment here, you know? But that's not just only the sport environment, but it's also us as athletes. We're always working towards getting better every single day, which sometimes can be sometimes I would say, just be content. Just be at peace with where you're at and what you have achieved, and not always being almost unthankful, like, it's not good enough, we need to do better. So it's, again, a fine line. Then a travel lifestyle. For years and years and years, I've been traveling every year. It would be up to 3 to 4 months. And because I was involved, or I've been doing an individual sport, I traveled by myself for a long time. And it can really become lonely, especially in an environment where it's a competitive environment. So there's not often a space where you can be vulnerable, or you can show that, like, I'm a bit afraid, or I'm struggling with this, or, you know, going emotionally through underperformance or something. With who do you talk? Yes, you can Skype your parents, but it doesn't substitute just maybe a friend being there, or just a community of the church people, or that. So it can become lonely. And I struggled with that, I can be honest. The other thing is perfectionism. So it's almost as if the sport requires us to be very precise. there's no room for mistakes in a race, especially if you work the whole year or few years for world championships or a big race. Then there's 10 hurdles. If you make a little mistake this big and your leg is this much too low and you hit the hurdle, you're out. It's the whole season looks different. The sponsors look different at you. So I think it's an environment that makes you prone for perfectionism, which can also become unhealthy because we cannot live up to those standards. We're only human beings and there will be mistakes. And yeah, I think it's just also something that I've struggled with. To be honest, sponsors and money is quite scarce. I think I can only think of a few athletes in South Africa that can really sustain themselves by just the sponsors that they have, and those are the athletes that are on the top. Yes, I can't really say that I've received support from my governing body in my career. So, like, for example, in those 2 years where I was out of competition, I lost my sponsor. And I was lucky to have parents that sustained me. But other athletes maybe don't have that, and they drop out of the sport prematurely, and that's really sad. Also, if you are on a tight schedule, like tight financial budget, and you have to race in Europe, and that is your bread and butter, it can become very hard, because now you have to perform, or what you maybe do is you over race, you book a race like every second or third day, and then you get injured, because how can you sustain that? So it's difficult, especially from a South African context, to be a professional athlete and to do that as a career. Then also your sport consumes your whole world, your whole lifestyle, everything that you do, what time you go to bed, what you eat, how you socialize. If friends ask you, can we go away over the weekend? We want to go on a hike. It's like, no, you can't go on a hike, because what if you get injured? Or, at Saturday evenings, or Friday evenings, I have to go to bed quite early. I have training tomorrow morning, not so early, but I do have training and I have to be on top form. Everything consumes around it, and it's what's needed to be the best. But on the other side, that's all you think of. It's all you talk about. It's your whole life. So it can so easily become an obsession. It can so easily become your God at the end of the day, which is not healthy. I don't think anything should be your God, but our Lord Jesus Christ. That's his rightful place. And that's quite dangerous as well. And then your will becomes small. What I mean by that is, you're only busy with athletics. That's what you talk about, think about. That's your friends. That's the people you hang out with. And you think almost that is life, and that's how life should be. And especially being on the other side of things now, I can tell you that there's a lot more to life. And that's good. That's great. I now realize things that I actually enjoy that I never knew, like photography and things like that. And I'm almost I feel like I'm starting from scratch again with life. But there's a lot more to life than just athletics and winning and all of that. So with giving you that insights, let's go a little bit deeper. Now I will share a bit about my faith journey and the questions that I had. And I think, I really wrestled with these questions. If I think back on my journey, where I started and where I am today, it's two, I don't want to say two different people, but I've really grown, and the way that my picture of God has changed a bit. I think, and I hope in a good way, where I've grown, and in my picture that I have of God. So this is just questions that I want to share with you that I wrestled with, and I think are quite hard questions that I think all athletes are confronted with if they are if they're believers. Okay, so the first question is, of what use am I to God when I'm not doing well or I am injured? So let's take, for example, the time where I was, just after the surgery, I was in crutches. Everybody forgot about me. I'm not at the track or anything. I'm just doing my rehab every day. I didn't feel like this star athlete. I didn't feel like, God, you can use me. To be honest, I didn't feel like I had a purpose because I'm not running and I'm not on the podium and I can't glorify God. And through that, I realized that God is the God of our lives in the highs and in the lows. So He's the only constant thing. Yes, our circumstances may change. Our performances may go up and down, but God is there in everything. And that is actually a relief for us to know, is that God is there and God can use us in the times when we are injured. Maybe just in a different way. If I think back, every day you're in rehab, you spending time with people, and sometimes if you just have a hope, that is maybe people are like, why are you hopeful? And it's like, because I have a hope that is bigger than me. It's not necessarily to do with the running and the athletics, but it comes with an eternal hope that it's okay, we will get through this, and to have that constant. Does that make sense? Okay. The next question is it okay to feel weak and to be honest about my emotions? So as an athlete, we groomed in a way to be strong and to portray that. When you go onto the track, you go onto the track with authority. I've got this under control. I'm strong. I'm the best. And yeah, I'm going to win this race. Where the problem comes in is where we don't have a place and a safe space where we can show that I'm struggling a bit with this, or I'm just feeling weak, or things are not going well and I'm emotional. Do we have a space to be real at the end of the day? And I think what I've learned is that I can be real with God. It's okay. He's not shocked when I'm a bit messy. And actually, I've experienced a lot of intimacy with God in those times where I just said to Him, like, even now, I'm a retired athlete. I'm struggling with this. Lord, help me. I think that is fine. I think it's good and healthy. Next question, will God bless me when I'm doing everything right? Yeah, I think this is for me a great question and something that I struggled with, because I've been so many times in my life, I felt, God, I really want to do things your way. At least I thought that it was my intention. If it was pure always, I don't know, maybe it wasn't. But I said to Him, God, I really want to do it your way. I want to be a Christian in sports. I want to glorify you. I want to do everything right. Why do you bless other athletes? Why do you give them it to them more easily? And I think the way that we should see God's blessing should be maybe a bit different. Does it mean you're blessed when you win? Does it mean God loves you more when you are the national record holder? I don't think so. So I think we need to know that the Bible speaks about hard times and difficult times. It even tells us to rejoice when there's hard times and difficult times. And because that's when character is built. And I think that's maybe what's more important to God than always us, being blessed in a way. Okay, the next question is good performances and achievements a sign that I am in God's will? So we tend to think that when we're doing well, we have God's blessing and we are in his will. But what if we are not doing good? Does that mean we're all of a sudden out of God's will? I think we should be careful to think that way, because if I think back, I think many of the hardships and struggles that I had really shaped me, and I don't think that God wants to injure us and all of that, but we go through these hard things, and God uses that and he shapes us, and I think we can be in God's will even when we're not doing so great. Yeah. Next question, is me winning the race important to God? Okay. I think the answer is yes and no. And it's still I don't say that I have all the answers, so don't take me as I've got it figured out, but that's just what I think. I think there can be times when God is in our story and he cares about us and he knows what are we working for and he knows the desires of our hearts. So let's take that race, for example. I prayed about that race of the World Cup. I was like, Lord, this is the chance that I have. Everything is right. I'm in the form of my life and I've got a great even lane and everything. Please, can I win this race? And, it happened and I'm thankful to him. But there were other races where I didn't win, and I think that was also important to God. And what if there's other athletes in the same race that also pray about these things and ask God? So I just maybe think that there are a lot bigger things that are more important to God than us winning races. Okay, next question. Am I giving up on my calling when I made the decision to retire? Because giving up is not a language that athletes use. We don't give up. This is not part of who we are. And I really felt it. I felt like people are going to think I'm giving up and I'm going to see myself as a failure or giving up. And to be honest with you guys, it was one of the most difficult decisions of my life. I think it took a lot of courage actually to say, listen, there's a time for everything in life. As Ecclesiastes teach us, there's a time to weep, there's a time to rejoice. There's maybe a time for me to have been an athlete, and there's a time to go on with the next season of my life. And I think it is actually good and healthy to be able to say, I am okay and I'm not an athlete anymore. Because that means my identity and everything that I am is not dependent on that. I think there's a lot of sad stories out there of people really struggling, not being able to retire. They can't move on with life. And I'm not standing here and saying it's easy. I am struggling, but I can share that I think it's healthy to say, you know what, I'm okay and I'm not an athlete anymore. Okay, next question, and I think it's the ultimate question that we need to ask ourselves, all of us, is what is important to God? Being on this side of my journey, I'm asking myself, what did all of this mean? Every single day, I gave everything to the sport and believing that I made a difference, and what is important to God? And I think it's actually a loaded question, but it's more important to God that who we become and who we are. And if our lives are in his hand, and if we keep that perspective in life, that money and fame and accolades and achievements, that is secondary. I'm thinking of the verse that says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all these other things will come together. And all of these things coming together doesn't mean everything will work out to what you want. It's just if the main thing remains the main thing in your life, then all of the other things will be you will see them in perspective. If that makes sense. So let's continue what I've learned about God. And this is just to conclude from all of these questions that I have. This is just coming from my side, what I've learned. And yeah, number one, we do not need to perform for God. Our saving is based upon what He has done for us on the cross. We cannot earn or perform for His love. And I think as an athlete, it's dangerous because we want to perform for everything. Our whole lives are based on how we do, how we perform. And it happens. When we get ourselves, we think we need to perform for Him. And yeah, I've just learned and that it's one place where we don't have to perform. That doesn't mean that we should try and make godly decisions in our life, but it's not based upon our performances. Then running is only a gift. My only responsibility is to worship Him with that gift and to reach my potential. It is not about my own glory or about other people's expectations. I haven't done anything to receive this gift. I've been born with a gift, and my only responsibility, and when I ask myself, what does God want me to do with this, is to run and to worship Him with it, to enjoy it, to be thankful, and to reach my potential in that and to enjoy the process. It can easily happen when other people have expectations of you and you think you have to just fit into that box. And with this, I found a lot of peace to know that I asked myself this question, now being retired: did I reach my potential? Did I give it my everything? I don't care about what people think I should have achieved or anything like that. And then last but not least, it's more important to God who you become and about the fruit in your life than your success. I think we can always go back to the fruit in our lives, and yeah, it's not all about the success, and that's what I've learned about God. Yeah, then I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening, and I hope that my story encourages somebody out there, and maybe athletes, if you're struggling or wrestling with some questions, that I could have just maybe given you some insights into that. I'm going to open it up for questions if somebody have questions.